Hey, and welcome to another episode of The Art of a Life Well Lived. I'm Christine Regan Lake, and it's good to be back again. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, today, what I want to talk to you about is the narcissistic father wound. So, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to do that. If you find my videos interesting and valuable, that helps me grow my channel. And if you don't want to subscribe, but you just want to like and share the video, that would help too. And I so appreciate every like, share, and comment, just to let you know. And I always welcome your feedback. I would love to hear what kind of topics you want me to cover in my videos. I want to make the content as relevant as I can for those who are watching. Okay. So let's get started. The narcissistic father wound. So the narcissistic father wound, this can, even though some of the traits that I'm going to be talking about may come off as masculine, each of us has a masculine and a feminine. So you can be a female experiencing, some of the symptoms that we're going to go through with regard to signs of the narcissistic father wound. So what is that? So the narcissistic father wound is really about growing up with a father who had trauma from their childhood, unresolved emotional trauma from their childhood that was unintentionally passed down to you. So it's going to be passed down to you in two ways. The first way is that it's actually embedded in your cellular memory and your DNA. The other way is that it's going to be the experiences that you had as a child interacting with your father in terms of, how he interacted with you in a dysfunctional way that embedded within you now dysfunctional, negative, unhealthy habits that are, just showing up in your life, whether you realize it or not. So pay attention to these traits and see if any of it is relevant for you. Always know that there is, emotional healing is profound work that can release these anchors, because what happens is when you have these negative experiences from your childhood and you have all of that, those emotions triggered, and you have that trauma that has been opened up and triggered and ignited, what happens is it gets locked in the body. It never reaches a place of completion, and that's what causes you to react in in situations where your trauma has been triggered. So know that emotional release work, energy release work that is the ticket to freedom for you. That is how you will release the trauma from your body, from your nervous system, so that you can learn to healthfully respond to situations instead of just being kind of an automaton triggered reaction person who has no control over your emotional states, and you're constantly having to apologize then later because you overreacted in a situation where your triggers were triggered, and you kind of said some things or did some things that now you later regret. Those things happen because you have unprocessed trauma that hasn't been healed. Energy release work is a phenomenal way to release those negative angers and set yourself free from that trap of emotional bondage, really. It's negative trauma, emotional bondage. Okay, so what are the father wounds? So the first one would be that your father was not very loving and supportive of you. You'd find in your day-to-day interactions, he could be cold and, wasn't really pouring into you, showing emotion, whatever. More than likely, he was disconnected from his emotional body, which is very common. People who have trauma disconnect from their emotional body as a coping mechanism so they don't have to deal with it. The problem is then they come off as kind of this frozen stone person who it appears that they have no feelings, they're not emotional, they're just like rigid, stone, cold, and frozen. That's a trauma response, and it's a way that if they stay disconnected, they don't have to tap into their emotional body, because their emotional body is so riddled with trauma that it's just easier to disconnect. And more than likely he would have coping mechanisms of either maybe overworking, over drinking, overeating, whatever, staying busy, a busy addict, whatever. There's lots of coping mechanisms. Okay, so if you grew up with a father who was not loving and supportive, how does that impact you? Well, you're not going to be comfortable expressing your emotions. You have inherited both his cellular memory and his DNA of being shut down, frozen, emotional, as well as developed these own coping mechanisms yourself because you're modeling his behavior in this lifetime. So it will be very challenging for you to comfortably express what emotions you're feeling. And one of the other challenges with people expressing the emotions that they're feeling, there is a huge spectrum of emotions that we feel. You could feel slighted, you could feel jaded, you could feel despair, you could feel hopelessness, right? But generally speaking, most people only have 2 to 3 go-to emotions. It's happy, sad, angry. And they kind of like, those are the only kind of emotional states they are familiar with, and they don't have the language or the ability to tap into their body to really articulate it. Maybe it's not sad. Maybe it's just a little it's not like a deep depression. Maybe it's just a little blue. You're kind of a little melancholy, whatever. So as you heal and grow and mature and evolve, learning to tap into your body and learning the subtle differences in the emotional state of what you're truly feeling is a gift, because you are far more than just happy, sad, and angry. There is a whole orchestra of emotions that want and need to be felt, right? Your body feels what it feels, and it wants you to acknowledge whatever it's feeling. Okay, so next, let's go on to the next one. So if your father was like kind of overly controlling and really was always trying to mold you and shape you and force you to be what he thought you should be, this is what a man is, this is what a woman is, you know what I mean? And had very confining boxes as to who you should be, right? There's going to be should all over the place. It's, you should act like this, you should talk like this, you should go to this kind of college, you should get this kind of job, you should marry someone, this kind of person, whatever. The should, right? So if you grew up with a father who did that to you, who was constantly just oppressive and pressing you down with his belief of who you should be as a person, you are going to be excessively defensive when it comes to any kind of criticism or constructive criticism. When people try to tweak you at work to be able to help you to do better, you're going to be hypersensitive, because your body and your psyche and your subconscious mind has, from the time you were a child, you have been constantly, told and retold and whatever, who you should be and who you shouldn't be. And you know what I mean? And so as a defense mechanism, you go the other way and overreact, where you're almost incapable of hearing constructive criticism, even if that advice is truly going to make you better. You're not open to it, and you're not going to receive it because you're hyper defensive and you have no objectivity. That is a wound that you want to heal, because the reality is we all could get better. We all have areas that we could improve upon. And if we have an inability to be objective and listen to people who truly have wisdom to share with us that could benefit us, then it's important for us to be able to do that, to put down our ego and say, okay, let me hear what this person has to say, because it will serve you. Okay, so what's the next thing? So many times a dysfunctional, out of balanced masculine energy, a narcissistic father, could push like man up, right? And the man up will be both relevant for the son and the daughter. So if you're a daughter to a narcissistic father, you're more than likely, it's, he didn't have the understanding of what feminine energy is and the receptivity, and how feminine energy is a completely different energy from masculine energy. It's softer, it's nourishing, it's more receptive. But so as the daughter, you're getting this message of manning up. And so now you can actually become out of alignment with your feminine energy and gravitate more heavily to the masculine energy, which destroys the polarities in your intimate relationships. So, the sexual attraction is because there's an attraction, one's feminine, one's masculine, and they're pulled together, and it's the polarity that pulls them together. When you don't have that polarity, if you're a woman who is out of balance, too, in her masculine energy, it's going to offer challenges in your interpersonal relationships, your romantic relationships, because you're too masculine. And so men aren't going to be attracted to that if they're healthy masculine men. Now, if you're 2 in your masculine, what you might attract is a masculine who's 2 in his feminine energy. It might be a beta man or whatever, who is more, he's out of balance in his feminine. The ideal situation is you both want to be balanced in both your masculine and your feminine. The masculine energy is the doing, the move towards achieving your goal setting, you know, achieving your goals, all that stuff. The feminine is more in the moment, in the flow, organic, soft, feminine, receptive energy. You really want to have a balance of both. That's the ideal situation for both masculine and feminine, because a man who has like zero, you know, he's not at all open to his feminine energy, he's going to have issues with receiving. He's not going to be able to receive love and affection and attention because he's closed off that part of himself for whatever reason. Could have been trauma, modeling, cellular, you know, generational curses, things like that. Okay. So if you've been pushed into that man box, both of you, the masculine and the feminine, are going to be, it's going to be a very difficult challenge for you to be vulnerable, right? Because you're constantly feeling like that you have to be that strong masculine energy. And so it will be extremely difficult for you to open up and be vulnerable and share your insecurities and your vulnerability with someone, because that is out of the identity that has been thrust upon you from the imbalanced narcissistic father wound. Okay. So if you had a narcissistic father who was not very approving of you, what you will do is you will find that if he was constantly, condemning what you're doing, it was never good enough, you will then spend the rest of your life, unless you heal this father wound, seeking approval from authoritative men. So for a woman, you might want to date older men, a father figure, and you're constantly craving their approval, their attention, their you're going to do this very unconsciously. You're not going to realize that you're doing it, but you will constantly be seeking that. You're really looking for what you didn't get from your father. You're going to be looking for it in your partner. Instead of looking for a partner who's your equal, you're going to be looking for a father figure who will finally give you the love, the attention, and the approval that you've always sought. Same thing for men. You could be seeking it in your male friendships or with your career situations, constantly looking for that approval from an outside person to make you feel that you are enough, because you don't feel like you're enough because of those traumatic experiences from your childhood with your father. You don't feel like you're good enough. You will always want kind of that third party approval of everything that you're doing, and it's not gonna, it's gonna be detrimental to your long-term well-being, your fulfillment, because you're constantly seeking that third party validity and approval seeking, instead of going into your internal compass and saying, this is my path. I don't really care who does or doesn't approve of what I'm doing. This is what resonates with my soul, and this is how I'm going to move forward. So the beauty and the power of healing that part of the narcissistic father wound is that you will transcend that ego part where you really need people to be on board with you and approving of what you're doing, because you're like, this is my path. This is who I am. I don't care if you approve of what I do. I don't care if you agree with my political beliefs. I don't care if you agree with my religious beliefs or whatever it is. You are solid in who you are, and you don't need anyone's approval or permission to live the life that you want to live, which is extremely powerful and will set you free emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, and potentially financially too, as well, if you've had any kind of limitation imposed upon you from that approval seeking rhythm that you were in your life. Okay, so what's the next one? So if they only showed love when you achieved something, what they did is they created the people pleaser, right? So if the only time your dad kind of gave you praise was when you came home with a straight A report card, or, you got another badge in the Eagle Scouts, or, you ran the race, you came in first in the running race, what's being downloaded into you is that I have to hustle for my love. I have to earn my love, which means I constantly have to be people pleasing. So you become a busy doing addict. You become the perfectionist, goal setting, constantly having to like, here's my next win, here's my next win, here's my next win, whatever. And when you're in that obsessive driving capacity of what's the next win, it's always you're time traveling, right? Because you're always living in the future. It's all about, once I achieve this, then I get my next hit of worthiness. Once I get this next raise, I get my next hit of worthiness. Once I get this next award, I get my next hit of worthiness. And it's almost like you become a drug addict addicted to achievement, right? And it's amazing. There's some kind of, I don't remember what the quote is exactly. I'm going to completely chop it up here, but it's something like, it's amazing what men would do for a little piece of metal and ribbon that you'd hang on their chest, meaning like what, men will put down their lives, right, for the thought of having like a Medal of Honor or something like that, right? That like, or even I've sometimes, observed people when like they get an award, it's a piece of paper with your name on it, right? But we put so much weight on this, like, oh, this is an award, right? It's really a huge hit to your ego. And, in the scheme of things, like what's really important, right? But that's what happens is you become this you are in a perpetual race to achieve that next hit of achievement and award so that you can get the praise and the people pleasing and things like that. Okay, so what's next? So if your father was intrusive, meaning he was constantly in your business, constantly kind of being helicopter over, not allowing you make decisions, telling you what you need to do, completely violating your boundaries, you're not going to have any boundaries growing up. And the fact that your boundaries have been violated since you were a child over and over and over again, you're going to have tremendous feelings of repressed anger. That anger is going to bubble up inside of you, and so this is the kind of the person that's kind of always walking around like kind of looking for a fight. Even someone says something jokingly, and they take it out of context. When you have a tremendous amount of unprocessed, repressed anger, you're like a tea kettle just steaming over, just steaming all the time, and just waiting for the opportunity to have a fight. You're going to pick a fight because you want some relief from this constant anger. Now, the reality is that you might scream and you'll get that momentary release, but because you haven't consciously released the anger, you're never getting rid of it. It's just like the teapot. The way to turn the teapot off and take it off the stove is to actually heal the unprocessed anger that you have, so you don't have the teapot just steaming over all the time, just waiting for a fight. Okay, so what's the next one? So if your father was completely unpredictable and was hostile, just kind of like the volcano waiting to explode, and you walk on that eggshells, and it was a very, very chaotic environment, your nervous system, your body becomes attenuated and entrained to being attracted to chaos, which means, you all know this, people in your life who are chaos addicts. There just seems to be a never-ending stream of chaos in their life. They're chemically addicted to chaos. Their body has become used to and adjusted and attenuated to having chaos in that fight or flight all the time scenario. For me, years ago, I learned that I'm an empath and I'm an HSP, highly sensitive person. I am extremely sensitive to energy. So the minute I get a whiff that I have a drama queen in my midst or a drama king in my midst, I just start like slowly backing away, and I just spend less and less time with that person, because I have zero tolerance for that kind of unconscious, chaotic hailstorm of drama. I have no room for it in my life. I work very diligently to maintain my energy, to stay joyful, present, positive, simple, less, minimalist, right? Whatever, like zero drama. Life is way too short. I am 52 years old. I have zero room in my life for just kind of useless drama because someone is addicted to it. Okay, and it's funny because I actually dated someone for a short period of time who used to talk about how passionate his past relationship was. And the more he talked about the relationship, what he was talking about was they were constantly fighting. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're addicted to the adrenaline. And I was like, and it ended very shortly after that because, like I said, I have zero room for useless drama in my life. Good luck, God bless. I wish you the best, but not for me, not here. Not my monkey, not my circuit, not my circus, not my monkey, right? Okay, and so the last one, if your father was absent, if he was not there a lot, whether it was absent and as in he left completely, he walked out, or he passed away, or simply was just a workaholic who was never home or traveled a lot, things like that. If he was absent, you're going to have deep-seated abandonment wound issues where you're constantly feeling afraid that someone is going to abandon you and leave you. One of the traits that you might find that you do is because of your abandonment wound, you may find that you're someone that if you're constantly scanning the relationship, any relationship that you're in for the slightest hint that someone might be losing interest or whatever, and then you'll break it off first. I had a friend of mine who said to me several years ago, she's like, oh yeah, she goes, I am always the person who ends it. Nobody's ever going to break up with me. I always break up with them first. And I was like, isn't that interesting? But that was an abandonment wound. So her hyper reaction to her abandonment wound issues was to always be the person who broke up first so that she would never be broken up with. Because in her view of the situation, it was, if she's the one who breaks it off first, she's safer. That's the better scenario to be in. And so that was what she was going to do. So those were some of the traits that I wanted to share with you. I'll just quickly recap for those who want. First, if he's not loving and supportive, you're going to be uncomfortable expressing your emotions. It will be very difficult for you, super hard for you to open up and share your emotions of vulnerability. If he attempted to mold you or shape you into who you be, being kind of oppressive, you're going to be super defensive about any mistakes that you make, and you're not going to be open to any kind of constructive criticism, which is truly going to inhibit your growth and evolution as a soul, because we all have work to do. We all have things that we can improve upon. There's nothing shameful about, needing to grow and evolve and get stronger and better at something. The third thing is that if he had the man box mentality where you were constantly being told to man up, you will more than likely have an imbalanced masculine and feminine ratio in your body. You will probably be more predominantly masculine, which means that your feminine is not getting the energy that it needs, which means you probably have receiving issues. You're going to have challenges receiving, opening up, being soft, gentle, and vulnerable. If he was not very approving of you, was constantly criticizing and things like that, then you're going to be constantly seeking the approval of other, many times masculine figures. If you're a woman, you might date and marry a father figure instead of a partner of your equal. You wanted someone who was a father figure who would give you the love and praise and approval that you never got as a child. If he only showed love when you were achieving something, then you have become a people pleaser. Then your entire life revolves around pleasing the people around you and seeking third-party validation for who you are as a person, which will lead you feeling resentful, exhausted, and you're not going to be fulfilled, because it's really never about what you want. It's really about, what do I think other people want of me to do, and living that, which is a completely inauthentic life, which will deplete your soul and it will make you angry. If he was intrusive and was kind of pressing down and kind of telling you what you need to do, you're going to have no boundaries. You're going to have serious issues with people violating your boundaries and speaking up and saying no when something doesn't work for you. You're going to have tremendous feelings of repressed anger, rage, and resentment, because when our boundaries are violated over and over and over again, that creates incredible anger, which over time bubbles over and morphs into resentment and rage. And next thing you know, you will be exploding about things that, you will explode on someone else, completely an overreaction. And really that the crux of that anger is from your childhood, the unrepressed anger, the unprocessed and repressed anger that you have towards your father from your childhood. if he was if you grew up in like a hostile, angry environment where you never knew when the shit was going to hit the fan, you will be chemically attracted to chaos. You will have a chemical addiction to chaos. So you will find that you will be in relationships where there's constant conflict. You're in jobs with, employers where there's constant, you will have an addiction to chaos and the adrenaline rush that comes with that, which is completely exhausting. It depletes your adrenals, it weakens your immune system, and it's completely unhealthy. And the last one is that if your father was really absent physically or emotionally, you will more than likely have abandonment wounds that directly impact your intimate relationships and your, closer connections like friendships and stuff like that. So those are the traits of a narcissistic father wound. I hope that you found value in that. This journey, I have always said that the journey of self-love is one of the most sacred journeys you will ever take. Learning to understand who you are, why you do the things that you do, and then healing the wounds that cause you to engage in thoughts, beliefs, habits, and behaviors, patterns that don't serve you is a sacred experience. It's fascinating, and it is so worth the result that you get when you come through on the other side, because you feel lighter, you feel more present, you feel more comfortable being your authentic self. You've released the people pleasing. You don't need to have all the addictions to run away from a life that you don't like or find fulfilling, because you've learned to embrace who you are, what you want, and release the things in your life that no longer serve you. So I hope you found value in that. I've so enjoyed sharing it with you today. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.